Hi, y'all, and welcome to Monday night's All Metal Mode podcast with Gypsy and myself, Amanda Digger DeGauze. And tonight we have special guest James Stottlemyer. So before we get started with tonight's episode, just a reminder, May's issue of Dirt Digest magazine is available at dirtdigestmagazine.com. I think I saw Steve Moore is on the front cover, and I'm pretty excited to actually take a look at it. I haven't had a chance yet, but definitely going to head on over to dirtdigestmagazine.com and read May's issue. So if you haven't, definitely go check it out. You know, it's jam-packed full of stories, interviews, and finds. So it's a great thing to go check out, and yeah, just do it. Hey, Gypsy, welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you. Glad to be back. It was a fun trip, kind of a quick trip, I guess, to Oregon. And I got to reconnect with the people that I was on the Gold Rush show with, on Freddie Dodge's Gold Rush show, and reconnect with the people that are running the gold mine there. And it was great seeing them again. And I took tons of videos. So I got like 3 or 4 videos coming of that trip, and relic hunting and gold prospecting and exploring in that gold mine, and it was a lot of fun. So it was great to be back and visit with them, reconnect.
That's awesome. Yeah, it was out of the blue, huh? Because I know I was talking to you, and you're like, I think you were in East Texas, and you're like, I'm headed out.
Yeah, it was kind of a last-minute decision. I know Steve Moore was wanting to try to get up there. I think you and I might have talked about this a little on here, but before, when we talked about the Charles Garrett Memorial Hunt, that Garrett will be re-releasing the White's 24K detector, and they were going to try to get that up there for me to test, but just wasn't able to have it ready in time. I think they're trying out some different coil type things with it. I don't know what all they're doing with the machine, but didn't quite get that up there. But I did get to metal detect while I was there, relic hunt, and all that fun stuff. So it was a fun trip. And then I got back and then went back out metal detecting. You know how that goes. And bottle digging and dump digging. So
It's awesome.
How about you? You've been doing some mudlarking again?
I have. So, years and years past, I would be in the woods, in the fields, and just totally out there detecting and everything. The ticks here this year it's crazy. Instead of like 1 or 2, you end up coming in and you have like 11 on you, or like 15 of them on you. And the ones in my area are the small, the deer ticks, the ones that actually carry Lyme disease. So I haven't ordered the Promethean stuff. I need a refill on it. And until I get that, I'm kind of trying to stay away from the long grass in the woods. So yes, I've been skipping out on metal detecting and checking out my spots and playing a little I Spy. And I found another little beer mug like I did last year, except it's a bit bigger. And I know last weekend I actually got 2 silvers. I got a 1902 Barber Dime and I'm not sure yet what year, Mercury Dime. So that was exciting. 2 silvers without the detector. So I can't complain. And so that's been good. It's been good. I miss metal detecting. Don't get me wrong. And I can't wait. I just, I need to have better protection. So Yeah.
Yeah, it's scary. I had gotten a tick when I was up there in East Texas. While I was up there, I was out in the woods metal detecting with my brother, and when I got home or back to my parents that evening, and I was in the shower, and I had pulled a little seed tick off of me, and it left a bad mark. It took me forever to get rid of it. It's finally gone, but those things are not to mess with, as we know from our friend Bill in chat that went through all kinds of heck with, or I would say even worse. But anyway, y'all know what I mean. Bad stuff. So.
Yeah. No fun at all. So yeah, that's one of the reasons why I've kind of taken a pause on the metal detecting. I need to refill and get more gear. But yeah, so shall we introduce our guest?
Yeah, let's go ahead and introduce our guest tonight.
All right, everyone, give a warm welcome to James Stottlemyer. Hey, James, welcome to the show.
Hey, how's it going? Thank you. I appreciate it.
Glad to have you here.
Oh,
So,
thank you. I'm super excited.
thanks. We've been talking to James a little before we went live and kind of getting to know him a little. And we already know a little bit about him. But if you would, James, go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us about where you live and maybe kind of how you got into treasure hunting. And then we'll go from there.
Yeah, so I'm James Stottlemyer. I'm 23 right now. You know, I'm living in Canton, Michigan at the moment. Like I was living in Clarkston, Michigan before, but I moved out here for work. So I'm mostly into like dump digging, and I really like metal detecting too, and just mudlarking in general. So I do a little bit of everything. Just anything having to do with history really interests me a lot. And I've been interested in history ever since I was super young. You know, I was always wanting to go to museums and antique stores and, you know, just being able to see anything old. And I started collecting old coins. And probably about 10, 11 years ago, I borrowed my uncle's metal detector and I started scanning my backyard. And right away, I started finding all these wheat pennies, which was weird because my house was built in 1999. And I found an Indian head penny shortly after. And then right after that, I found a ring from the Civilian Conservation Corps, and it's super rare. I haven't seen a picture of another one anywhere online. It's like copper, and it has like an enameled glass front that says CCC with like a pine tree on it. So I think my backyard was actually a CCC camp. And I remember around that time I was learning about the CCC in school, so I knew right away what it was, and I got super excited. So ever since then, I've been, you know, pretty hooked. But the last 5 years, I've been really serious where I go almost every single day. And it's just like, you know, almost like my purpose in life is just to like save history now. It's like something that I'm super, super passionate about.
That's awesome for someone your age to be so passionate about what you do. And it's great to see someone your age that, you know, got into it. And you were telling us about how even after you go to work and you come home and instead of resting, you're out digging. So tell us a little bit more about that.
No, it's just crazy. I mean, I'm so addicted. It's like, you know, what just gets me excited, you know? It's like some days after work, I'll work like a 10 or a 12-hour shift, and I'll be digging outside, like, you know, really late at night with a flashlight. My girlfriend gets mad sometimes because I'll be out until midnight or 1 a.m. digging with the flashlight out there and everything. It's just like when you start finding all these cool artifacts, it's so hard to stop. It's like really hard to turn it off, you know? So, yeah, I mostly have been digging at this paper mill spot recently. It was built in the 1870s and it burned down in 1898. And I can get a lot more into that, but I'm finding artifacts that are even older than the mill there, as early as the 1750s. So it's like really hard for me to want to do anything else, you know, when I find artifacts this old every day. It's like on a good day, I can probably dig up 500 to 1,000 artifacts. And like my buddy Anthony, like Oakland Digger, or my buddy Ted, he's like the Bottle Archive on Instagram. Like they can tell you, like we dig up, you know, 500 to 1,000 artifacts easily every time we go out.
That's
it's insane. Just insane. Like every take, you're digging up at least 5 or 10 artifacts. So I've never
Wow.
found that before, you know. It's just amazing. It's like the stuff I post on Instagram, it's mostly just like the highlights. It's like you don't see all the stuff behind the scenes. I fill up usually a water bottle at least full of all the just plain buttons or the bone buttons, you know, that I dig up at the paper mill. And yet back in the day, paper mill sites would essentially like recycle clothing. So they would scrap them and put them through machines. And, you know, they would throw out all the buttons and suspender clips off these, you know, articles of clothes. So that's what I'm digging up essentially is their dump. You know, I'll find a lot of rags, sometimes shoes, dolls, all kinds of stuff that, you know, were byproducts of the mill that they would toss out. So it's just super amazing because it was such a large scale operation, you know. It's just like I don't think I'll ever be able to dig the spot out.
That's
It'll
awesome.
keep going and going and going. Amanda
Oh,
and
yeah.
I dug a place. We talk about it quite often on here. She recently got to go back. We call it the button dump. She can tell you a little bit more about that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's a good time. But like you said, it's the same thing. You can come out with, you know, giant, we use freezer bags, gallon
Oh, yeah.
freezer bags, and we fill those with the buttons. So, yeah, sounds very similar.
Oh, yeah. It's just amazing because it's like it's so hard to find that many artifacts in a day. And it's like getting harder and harder to find silver and stuff around here. Like I haven't even, you know, I dug one silver coin this whole year. Like it's really hard to find silver where I live. It's like I've even hit a bunch of 1800s houses this year and haven't found any silver at them. So it's like, you know, I struggle to find silver. So it's like I can just go out there and find cool artifacts all day long. So it's like, why not, you know? And I have a few good stone
Right.
sites that I can dig at too. So
That's
it's
awesome.
pretty,
Well,
I mean, there's nothing cooler, honestly, than holding like a button in your hand that you know is older than America. It's just like I can't even process it in my mind because a lot of the clothing, you know, came from like England or from the UK, and they were scrapping outfits that were already 100, you know, maybe over 100 years old at the time. So it's just amazing. I'm finding these really old pewter buttons that are hand inscribed with flowers and all kinds of stuff. So just the craftsmanship back then was so amazing to me.
well, we had a question in chat, and someone was wanting to know: have you ever found any military buttons in
Oh, a
this?
ton. Yeah.
Tell
So
us about those, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so I dug that Revolutionary War button. It's a 17th Foot Regiment from the French Army, and the button was made, I think, in either 1782 or 1783. So it was towards the end of the Revolutionary War, and I think they're pretty uncommon. I really couldn't find much online. I think one person posted a picture on Facebook of one that was excavated in Virginia. At first, I thought it was from the War of 1812, but I had other people telling me it was from the Revolutionary War too. So Garrett Metal Detectors shared that photo, and you know, that made the American Digger magazine. And I just wrote like a full article about this mill that's like 6 pages long, so I had that in there. And then I also found a Michigan State seal pretty recently that was pretty cool. It had like a elk on it, and I think it's either a deer or a moose, and then like a shield, and I don't know. That's pretty cool. I think that one's like post-Civil War, though. I think it's like 1870s, 1880s. And then I've dug a ton of General Service Eagle buttons, and a lot of those are actually in pretty good shape. You know, they still have like the original shank or some of the original gold gilt. And
Right.
I found an engineer's button from the Civil War recently, which was super cool. I've never seen one before, so I dug it up, and I messaged one of my friends on Instagram. His name's Matthew. And he was telling me that it's like a Civil War era engineer's button from like the Engineer Corps. And that just
Very
blew my
cool.
mind. Yeah, it had like an eagle with like something in its mouth, and it had like a castle on it. I've never seen anything like it, so that was super, super cool. And I've dug a few other ones too. I can't really think of them off the top of my head, but I've probably dug about 25 or maybe 30, you know, since I started digging that site. And I've dug other ones in different sites too. World War One and World War II great seals and stuff like that. But you know, it's a good spot to find military stuff too, because I don't think there was as sentimental back then, you know, about the military stuff as they are now. It's like back then to them, it was just like an old uniform, you know, and they could get money for scrapping it because they had people that would go around town and collect old rags and old shirts and stuff like that to scrap, and they would pay people for it. So if people were, you know, kind of down on their luck and didn't have a lot of money, I'm sure they would have scrapped their service uniform or whatever they had to make some extra money.
Right. totally.
Yeah, very true.
It could be very well how you got that Rev War button in there. It was something thrown away, later, maybe something that they had been passed down in the family and then got discarded. So,
and as I said, I probably dug about 50 buttons from the 1700s, so it's like, I'm sure that's what happened, They just had old clothing laying around that they wanted to scrap to make a little bit extra money. Because most of the stuff I find is like 1850s to 1880s, but occasionally I find some older stuff there. So it's super cool. I find a lot of Goodyear buttons too, because Goodyear, like the tire company nowadays, they used to make combs and buttons and all kinds of stuff. So I find a lot of those. I find a lot of black glass buttons. Just, anything that you could think of, really. I find dolls, old dominoes, pipe pieces, bullet casings.
Wow.
Old bottles. I found some crazy old bottles recently. They're super old ones from like the 1870s. So it's a really good site.
Yeah. That is neat.
Those
so
type of sites.
Tell us about. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, those type of sites, you have days and days and days worth of fun. And like you said, if you're slowly working it, I'm sure you're just going to continue finding awesome stuff there.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it's just amazing. I mean, it's a piece of the town's history and everything, so it's just really nice to be able to preserve it. I'm just putting everything in shadow boxes, and I want to label it all so people know, eventually when I die someday, like where it was found and everything, and know the significance of it.
Right. That'll be perfect. That's a great way to preserve it. So tell us now, besides the Rev War button, do you have some other favorite finds that you found there?
Oh, yeah. So I found one button that said A.D. Titsworth on it, and I looked up the company, and they actually made suits for Abraham Lincoln, I think back in 1860.
Whoa.
Yeah, so it was a very, very high-end company from Chicago, but I guess it burned down in one of the Chicago fires. Those are pretty rare, I think, because the company wasn't around for a super long time. It was mostly around during the Civil War era, and it burned down shortly after. So that was like a really, really cool one. Another cool one was from a Michigan reform school. It has like an eagle on it, and at first I thought it was military, and I was freaking out. I'm like, what is this? It looked like some kind of really fancy eagle button, and it had these initials on it. But I posted it online, and it turns out that it's like an 1870s or 1880s reform school button from Lansing, Michigan, and I guess that's where all the misbehaved kids would go and stuff to try to like correct them. It was almost like military school for them, even though it wasn't like really the military. So that was a pretty cool. And then I found another one too. I can't remember what the name of the button was, but it was from some kind of asylum almost. It was for like really poor people. I guess it was like one of the first forms of welfare where they would keep people in these houses, and they would pretty much work there. They're almost like servants, and they had to kind of work to get their. This was in Ontario, so that one's from like the 1850s or something like that. But they just had some crazy rules. It's like if you worked on the Sabbath or something like that, they put you in this room. It was almost like jail. Or if you like stole something, they would put you in this room that was like jail. It's like they would jail you for pretty much anything you did that they didn't agree with. So just like reading the history of places is so fascinating to me. It's like just researching all these buttons. It's just really cool to build up all the knowledge.
And you would have never known about all that until you started digging that. That's what's so interesting about it all.
Oh, definitely. Another cool find too that I made was some kind of badge, and it had a guy's name on it. And I ended up looking up the guy, and he was a famous lawyer. He was born in the 1840s, and he died in 1914 of a heart attack in the middle of the road. And I guess he willed his whole fortune to like his maid, so it's kind of cool. He was like almost a historical figure. I think his name was N.H. Briggs. So just to find something that's actually tied to someone that's so personalized, I just thought that was so cool.
It is.
And it's from Michigan. A cool piece of local history, even though I don't know that area.
Wow. Oh, goodness. So, earlier we were talking about something kind of weird before we got online. We were live. Amanda and I were talking about it before we brought you on, and then we called you in. We were talking about teeth, finding teeth and stuff. So Amanda was talking about she had recently found a tooth with a filling in it, human tooth. So tell us about some of your strange or weird finds, if you don't mind, or if there's anything creepy or anything that you wanted to talk about.
Oh, me?
Yeah. Sorry.
Okay, yeah. I guess the creepiest thing that I ever found, I was digging in a really bad part of Detroit, and I was digging this privy, and I looked down, and out of the hole, there's a head sticking out, and it was a dead dog, but it was weird because someone just recently tried to bury it, so its head was out, and it still had all the fur on it, but its whole body was rotted out completely, and I freaked out. I saw the eyes because its eyes were wide open, so I just back and I started freaking out. I mean, that's probably the most disturbing thing that I found, but I don't know. I'm trying to think of other weird stuff. Just old needles and stuff. I was digging stuff out, and there were old needles everywhere. So I think what happened is this old vet clinic burned down because it was an old town dump, and all these buildings burned on this main street. So they threw all the rubble into this dump. So there were needles laying everywhere, literally everywhere. And I was getting so nervous. I was telling my buddy, I don't feel comfortable being in this area. We should go somewhere else. So we started digging down, and I literally dug over 200 dog tags from 1957.
What?
So it's I don't know what they were doing, if they were from dead dogs or if they just made all these tags and didn't use them or what, but they were everywhere. So I thought that was kind of a cool find. I saved them all and put them in a jar. I think another
That's interesting.
Yeah. Well, I've dug up bottles, too, that still have the original stuff in them. I found, one bottle that had Jell-O in it from, the 1940s. It was, an old ball mason jar. And you see all the layers.
Wow.
So there's, strawberry, and there was, vanilla, and you could still see all the layers in it. And that blew my mind that it stayed that preserved.
Wow.
And then a little while ago, I dug an opium bottle that still had all the original opium in it. It, blew my...
Moly.
Work and everything, probably from the 1890s, turn of the century. So, yeah, I found some pretty weird stuff in my day. A lot of murder weapons, too. So I do a lot of mudlarking in this city called Flint, and it's kind of a, collapsing city. I don't know if you guys heard about the Flint water crisis.
Yep.
With the left water. So that's where I go a lot, is to Flint, and the river's super polluted and nasty there. But I just found so many guns in there. It was so weird, and they're all old, but some of them were wrapped in plastic bags and stuff. So I called the cops out there for one of them that was wrapped in a plastic bag, and they looked at it and they were just laughing. They're like, "Why did you call us out here? Because the area is so bad they don't even care."
Really?
It's old gun. Yeah, what are we gonna do with this? It's the murder rate's so high. Same with Detroit. It's the cops don't even care. So it's what do I do with all these old guns I dig up?
Wow. I guess you're going to have to make a display.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's what I ended up doing. I took some of the really cool old ones and tried to clean them up and, put them on my mantle. Kind of made a display out of the cops didn't take because it's they just didn't have any interest. They're we can't really do anything with them. They're too far gone to get the fingerprints off of or anything. But a bunch of them were wrapped up in trash bags and stuff, but they're all old. I think the oldest one was a Winchester shotgun from the 1890s, and the newest one I found was a, what was it? Oh, it was a Beretta pistol, a 22 caliber Beretta pistol from the 1950s, but all the guns were from either, all the way back to the 1890s up to the 1950s.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I always wanted to dig a gun, and then I dug 5 in one summer out of the river, and my brother found 2 of them. So we got 7 total. I got 5 and he got 2.
Wow. So Dee's in chat. She was asking a question, but I think Oakland Digger is answering it. But she's from Michigan as well. She was just wanting to know where in Michigan you're from.
Oh, yeah. Like I said, I'm staying out in Canton, Michigan right now, but I'm originally from Clarkston, Michigan. So I started working for Fago. They're an old pop company from Detroit, and they were founded in 1907. So I worked for them. I'm a salesman for them. I cover 150 different stores in the area. So I moved from Clarkston out to Canton, which is pretty close to Detroit. It's about 30 minutes away.
Okay. Well, Deej is near Flint, so that's what she was saying.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I go out that way a lot, so my parents live out that way, so I come home to, spend time with them a lot and go digging out that way around Flint, so.
Now, Oakland
Cool.
Digger said to ask about the lighter you were able to return.
Oh, yeah, that was a super cool story. So I found a lighter, and it looked like a Zippo, but it wasn't. So it's made in Kalamazoo, Michigan by this company called Bauer. And I started cleaning it off when I got home. I thought it was just like junk. It was from the 50s, but, it looked like it was like kind of crusty and stuff. So I was like scrubbing it off with a toothbrush, and I found a name inscribed in it. It said Dale Ingram. So I posted it online, and within 24 hours, I returned it to the family. And I guess the guy that owned the lighter was a World War II veteran, like a Navy veteran. And it was super cool because, so pretty much the guy's son, the World War II veteran's son, got the lighter. And his daughters picked it up for him and gave it to him for his 60th birthday. So it was super, super cool. They sent me a video, and he was super sentimental, and he was about to cry when he saw the lighter, and he was just so happy because he was so close to his dad. I guess his dad passed away in the 1980s, who was a World War II veteran. So it was just so amazing within 24 hours how I could return that, because all these people online started responding, and one of the guys said, "Oh, I'm actually neighbors with the son of this guy that owned the lighter." I thought, "Oh, cool." So, they actually came out to my house and brought all of his war medals over and pictures of him to show me, and it was just super cool. And I ended up getting a picture with them that's on my Instagram.
Oh, that's an amazing story.
Check it out.
What is your Instagram again? Sorry.
Michigan Relic Hunter. I post like all my finds on there, all the coolest finds that I make.
Very cool. Now, I might have missed this in the beginning. Did you say what machine you use to metal detect?
No, I mostly use a Garrett AT Pro. So I have an Ace 250. I don't use that as much, but I've had that AT Pro now for probably like 8 or 9 years, and I had the Ace 250 before that. But, it's a good machine. It's held up good. I've never really had any problems, and Garrett's always really helped me out, too. I've busted a few pinpointers, and they replaced them like free of charge. So, I'm pretty happy.
That's awesome.
Oh, for sure. It's amazing, that it's, 10 years old now, and it still holds up so good. I've never really had a problem ever with it. I've had a few parts break on it, but I fixed them all, so.
That's great. Yeah, they have the excellent customer service, that's for sure.
Oh, definitely.
So, let me think. Do you have another question for him?
I do. So you talked about kind of the creepiest thing you found, and the militia button, the regiment button. Is that your favorite find that you found to date, the regiment button?
Oh, that's a tough question. I don't know. There's a lot of finds that I really like a lot. I was with my buddy, the Bottle Archive on Instagram. His name's Ted. And I dug a blob top beer bottle from the 1890s. It's from the LZ Forster Brewing Company. And it's like clear. It's like completely clear. It's not even aqua. And I found that. I knew right away it was like super special. And it turns out people have been looking for this bottle for 40, 50 years. And I was the first person to ever find a known example of it.
That's awesome.
So, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh. I had people contacting me about that. It blew my mind. And that ended up making the front cover of the American Digger magazine. But I've probably dug about 5 or 6 bottles before that were unknown. Where like literally no one. I've asked all these bottle experts. I put it on every Facebook group I could, I posted on all these bottle websites, and no one's ever seen them. American Digger posted a lot of them too, and no one's seen these bottles before. Like, I found some really, really, really rare ones.
That's incredible.
Oh, for sure. I think another one of my favorite finds was a Coke sign. It's from the 1930s. So I was looking on the banks of Flint, just trying to find some, relics or old bottles or something. And I see this piece of metal, and it was super long, and I thought, what the heck, I'll flip it over. I figured it was just junk. So I flipped it over, and it's an enamel glass Coke sign from the 1930s in, like, almost pristine condition. It had 2 small holes in it. So yeah, that was just so cool that it was laying on the riverbank for all those years, you know. And I was the first person to stumble across it and find it. The fact that it wasn't buried or anything, just laying on the surface.
Wow, that's amazing, and that's a highly collectible thing.
Oh,
Besides
yeah.
your rare bottles, man.
Yeah, the Coke sign started to fall apart, unfortunately. It's like the backing of it was like pretty corroded. It's like the front of it looked good, but the back of it was really starting to fall apart. And I figured it was kind of like a ticking time bomb that eventually it was just going to completely fall apart. So one of my friends paid me $500 for it. And I had a lot of car repairs at the time, so that really helped out. It's like I don't really like to sell my finds, but I didn't really have the space for it, and I didn't know how to hang it either, because it's like if I put nails in it, it might damage it. So it's like I didn't really know what to do with it even. I didn't know if I would have to custom frame it or what, so I ended up just selling it to him for $500 because he really wanted it for his house. And then I'm making a custom for it.
Yeah,
So
sometimes
that was super cool too.
you do what you have to do sometimes.
No, for sure.
Yeah, been there.
Yeah, definitely.
No.
So you go.
So is there something that you know, a lot of people call it bucket list or the white whale or whatnot. Do you have a bucket list, or do you have a white whale that you've yet to find that you're hoping to find?
Yeah, probably like a Civil War belt buckle. I don't really care if it's like Confederate or Union, you know. I just really want to find a Civil War belt buckle that's like authentic, because I found so many eagle buttons, but I really want a belt buckle. I really want to go like in one of those digging in Virginia hunts, you know, to look for one of those, because it's really hard to find them in Michigan. I had one friend that found one ever. You know, he got really lucky. He was detecting like an old Civil War reunion camp, and he ended up digging one. But they're like extremely hard to find here because the Civil War wasn't fought in Michigan. So, you know, it's mostly just bringbacks that people find when people brought them back from the war and lost them outside their house. But it's so hard to find them here. So that's one thing that I've always wanted to find. It's probably at the top of my bucket list. And just besides that, I really want to dig up a Cobalt Hutch or beer. I've dug up a lot of broke ones from like the 1890s, but never one that was intact. So that's kind of on my bucket list to find one of those. I dug up a piece of a Cobalt Hutch the other day. A pretty good chunk of one. That was kind of, yeah.
Wow.
I go digging.
Well, I mean,
what was that? I was just gonna say I go digging out in like the really bad parts of Detroit, and they pull a lot of Cobalt Hutches out of there, but it's just so dangerous. I've been down there probably, I don't know, probably about 10 times before, and two out of like the 10 times, there were gunshots like less than 50 feet away from the streets. So it's like it's a very dangerous area. I had to jump in the hole both the times because I didn't want to get hit in the crossfire. I think they were just shooting at signs because around there were all riddled in bullet holes. I don't think they were shooting at other people, but it was still enough to scare me because it was so close. So it's like that's the thing. I'm willing to go to most spots that most people aren't willing to go to. You know, that's how I find the cooler stuff. It's like most of the areas I go to are kind of run down and are kind of dangerous.
Yeah, that sounds dangerous. Boy, do you are you usually with someone when you hunt those areas, or?
Yeah, usually. I mean, sometimes I go by myself, but you know, I've never really had that big of a problem before with anyone. There's a lot of people on drugs, but I just try to stay away from them when they come up to me.
Right. Now, we were talking about earlier about kind of a near-death experience you had. Now, Amanda and I, we talk a lot. We've talked about this subject a lot on here, going, you know, hunting alone. So a lot of times we hunt alone, and like she was out one day and this huge tree fell, almost wiped her out. Not so long ago that happened, and you had an experience when you were out dump digging. You want to tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so I was digging at my paper mill site, and there was this cliff. We were digging like really far under the ground, so there was this cliff above us that's probably about 8 feet up in the air and 9 feet up in the air. It's taller than me, the cliff that we were digging underneath. So my buddy and I were kind of tunneling, and we were starting to knock down some of the walls, and we saw some of the stuff starting to cave in. You know, we saw some dirt falling and everything. We started to get worried, and we said we better, like, you know, kind of keep our distance. So we started to back up a little bit, and we were still like trying to chip away from kind of a distance, and all of a sudden this huge cliffside collapsed on top of me, and I got buried alive. It was just so scary. Like, I couldn't move, and luckily my buddy Ted was there, and he was able to dig me out, but I honestly thought I was going to die because it collapsed, and I thought, oh, I'm still alive, and I was so excited, and then more kept on falling, and another huge part of the cliff fell on top of me. And it's like, I could barely move. I couldn't move my legs whatsoever, and luckily I was wearing my waders for some reason. I don't know why. I think I got out of work and I didn't want to wear my work clothes, so I had my waders on over top so I didn't get dirty. But luckily I took the waders off, and my buddy unbuckled them, and he kind of dragged me out almost of the waders. So, I escaped. It was scary though, because the dirt was so heavy on top of me. I thought, if this gets over top of my head, if this falls completely on top of me, I would have died easily. Because it was buried so far down, I could not move my legs.
Oh my gosh. What was going through your mind when you were under there and you couldn't move? I mean, I can only even imagine.
I just honestly thought I was going to die, and I was just so thankful that I didn't. I've had a lot of near death in my life, but that was definitely one of the closest calls I've had. So I'm just really thankful that my buddy was there to save me for that, because if I was there alone, I don't know if I would have got out, because he really helped dig me out and everything. Like I said, I don't know how I would have got out. It would have been hard for me to even grab my cell phone because I could barely move my arms. And plus,
that's
so
scary.
My whole body was buried, so I couldn't even reach my cell phone, even if I tried, even if I could move my arms, because I was buried so deep underground.
Oh, man. I can only imagine what must have been going. Like this Saturday, I was dump digging with my friend Zola on the river, and it was this huge cliff that we were actually kind of digging into, and a lot of it's eroded away already. And so just digging in there, the slightest little thing is falling down on our heads. And we weren't digging deep enough for anything like what your experience was to collapse on you, but just even one of those bottles and stuff, or a rock or anything like that falling out of that overhangs, boy, that can knock you out if it hits you on the head. It's scary.
Well, it happened once to me. I was digging with my buddy Ted, and this piece of concrete started sliding down the hill, and I ended up nailing me in the head. I got so lucky it didn't hit me harder. I'm glad it wasn't a bigger piece, but it really, really hurt bad. I sat there for a second. I'm like, what just happened? And he's like, oh, a piece of concrete hit you in the head.
Oh, gosh.
Jeez.
Man. The things we do for treasure, right?
Oh, yeah.
We all do for treasure. Oh, boy. So, I know we've got a couple more questions for you.
Mm-hmm.
What did you have, Amanda?
So your social media accounts, do you have a YouTube, or is it just an Instagram, and can you share it again with everyone?
Yeah, so my Instagram is Michigan Relic Hunter. There's spaces in it, so Michigan space Relic space Hunter. But I mostly just use that. I started a YouTube channel a few years back, but I just got so sick of it. It's just that's not for me. I respect people that do that, but it's just not my thing. It's when I'm digging, that's kind of just my time to get away from technology and all that. So it's I kind of just like to dig, and I don't really like filming at the same time. But I mean, I respect when people do that. I don't really do that anymore. I think my old channel was called Treasure Trove that I had. I had posted some videos of me digging at the dump and everything there. And then I have Facebook too, but I use Instagram to post all my finds. I just kind of post the big news whenever I get an article published or something on Facebook, kind of.
That's cool. Well, you really ought to consider, I know we were discussing it earlier when we were talking about your paper mill, but I think that would make a really interesting book, and you could show pictures of, your finds and talk about the history there. That would be fascinating.
Yeah.
In my opinion. So.
I agree. The only thing that I thought is just giving the spot away. That's the thing. If I it's I don't mind sharing my spot to extent, but it's I don't want people going there constantly and just destroying the land and getting me kicked out of there or something.
Right. What you might want to do is start writing it and, dig there another 10 years.
Yeah,
You
good
can,
idea.
oh,
Maybe I'll move out of state or something and then I give away the spot. I don't know.
right. But yeah, it's definitely hard not to. Amanda and I've had that experience with some of our spots, and it's hard. It's hard to, not give away. And we share a lot of our spots, and we've gotten kind of burned in the past sharing
I
some
have
spots.
bad luck. That's why I'm pretty selective with who I take now, and I don't know, it just kind of makes me nervous. You never know what people are going to do. There's some people that I thought screwed me over, so it's like I'm just pretty careful now with who I invite and everything. I have like a pretty solid group of friends, like Oakland Digger and the Bottle Archive, that I know aren't going to screw me over, but I've had other people in the past that kind of have, so.
That's sad. But at least you got Oakland Digger there. I mean, he's a great guy. We've had him on as a guest. Wealth of knowledge there, and so it's good to have good friends in the hobby. That's for sure. Goes a long way.
For sure.
So I know, have you been to any metal detecting events or conventions or history swaps or any of that? And do you think you might attend any if you haven't?
I've never really been to any yet. I mean, I usually just go digging with a big group of my buddies, so it's I've thought about it before. I'm not really into the whole seated idea. I respect when people do that. It's just not my thing either. It's I'd rather just look for stuff that's been buried for a super long time. So it's I would kind of consider maybe doing, one of the digs on the East Coast or down south, where it's not seeded, where it's just a natural hunt. I would probably do that. But I just got to see what happens in the future. I don't have much vacation time at work, so it'd probably be really hard to get the time off. But maybe in the future I could see myself doing that.
Awesome. Yeah, we know that there's a big one in New York that it seems like a lot of people from Michigan, Ohio, basically all around are headed to come October. So that's why I figured I'd ask. It's it's all a natural hunt. And then I think one day is a seeded on top of one of the natural hunt fields. So, yeah.
Gotcha. Well, if I get the time off work, maybe.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the questions we like to ask is, sometimes there's a lot of places in our hobby that are off limits and, all over the world actually, that we can't metal detect at. If you could metal detect anywhere in the world, any place, where would that be? Do you have a place in mind?
Probably any kind of colonial settlement or just any Civil War battlefield. I think it'd be super cool to dig at Gettysburg or one of those big battles, just because I'm so interested in the Civil War history and just colonial history. That's probably the most interesting thing to me is the time period from the colonial times all the way up to probably the 1890s is what I'm most interested in. So, any of that stuff's just super, super interesting to me, but anywhere really old.
Right.
Michigan, we don't really have spots that we can dig from the 1700s, so I think it'd be really cool if I could dig one of the spots from the 1700s there. I mean, there's Mackinac Island and a few other spots that are super old in Michigan that I would love to dig, but there's a lot of rules against stuff like you said, so.
Totally. There's, so many places that have so many rules that, I can think all over the world that I would love to.
Oh, for sure, me too.
So, let's see. Do you have any more questions? Do we have any questions in chat for James? Anything you'd like to ask him?
I love finding those glass beads, though. That's pretty cool that you find those there, too.
Oh yeah, I found some. Like I found one that was like green almost, but it looked super early. I think they're like Native American Indian beads. Because I
That's
found a
cool.
bunch of them that are really old that are made out of clay or like really primitive looking glass. And that's another thing I talked about in the article that I wrote because I couldn't really figure out because I was finding artifacts that weren't really related to the paper mill that were way earlier than the paper mill. Like I found a clay pipe from the 1700s. They're like a really fancy pipe bowl. And I
Hmm.
found like a spigot, like a brass spigot, like a really, really early one from like the 1700s at the spot. So I know there were fur traders and stuff in the area, Native Americans. So I was almost wondering if that was like a trading post or something at one time before it was like a paper mill.
So is
Very
it,
well could have been.
and it's right
I
on
couldn't
the
think of,
water, right?
yeah, it's right on the water. I couldn't think of any other logical explanation of why I was finding stuff that wasn't directly related to the paper mill that was so much older. I highly doubt they would be using something for 100 years like a spigot, but you never know, I guess.
Hmm. Very well could have been a trade area.
Mm-hmm. Oh, definitely. Yeah, it's a super cool spot. I'm really lucky to have found it because I was just looking for spots to dig one day after school back when I was in college, and I stopped there and I just started detecting, and it was so weird because it was like junk everywhere. And then all of a sudden I got the signal and I started digging down and I started finding all this super old brass from the 1800s and old buttons and stuff everywhere. And I thought, what did I just find? You know, I'm like, why is there so many buttons here? I had no idea. So I started doing all this research online and eventually I figured it all out.
So do you have a certain way you like to clean your finds or some of your finds that you bring home?
Yeah, I mostly just use a toothpick or something just to get the crust off. I really don't like to use any chemicals or anything like that. I mean, very, very rarely I might use lemon juice to try to get like, you know, some of the crust off just for like a little bit, just to kind of get a little bit off if it's something super, super crusty so I can at least read what it says. But if it's anything like a Revolutionary War button or any of that, I don't even touch it. It's like I don't want to mess with that stuff. It's like I don't want to ruin like a really artifact. But it's getting to the point where I find so many buttons, I just leave them to the side for my other friends to take that are just starting to get into the hobby because I know they really appreciate them. Because it's like I think they're so cool, but what are you gonna do with 10,000 buttons? I don't even have room to store them all, you know. I have to like downsize my collection a little bit because it's getting out of hand. My parents are getting mad at my aunt because it's like taking up the garage and everything. It's like my whole room's full of like all the coolest stuff, and then I have other cool stuff like in the garage and all that. It's just like a lot.
Yeah, it definitely adds up, doesn't it?
Oh, for sure.
Now, with the dump, do you sift at all when you're digging?
So I did for a long time. I tried to, but the problem with the area is like the dirt's usually pretty muddy, and also there's like a lot of really big rocks too. So it's like very, very, very hard to sift, and it's thing for a while, and like the dirt won't really screen properly. So then like all the the whole screen's pretty much just covered in like wet dirt, and it won't really sift properly. So what I've been doing lately, I know it's not the best method, but I don't know what else to do. I just look on my shovel and I just gently like brush dirt off, and I just like look for the relics and pick them out. And I double check the dirt pile with my pinpointer and everything, and I just like completely spread it out flat just to make sure I didn't miss anything. And then I scrape it all down the hill or like scrape it into a pile, And then when it rains, usually I'll see any relics that I miss.
Right.
And I know that's not the best way to do it, but like it's really so hard to use a sifter. It's like people don't really understand until they dig up the spot how hard it is to sift it.
That's true with a lot of dumps. A lot of dumps I've found that it's just so hard to sift. And so you're usually digging then with a shovel, or do you use like a scraper, or both, or anything?
Yeah, I use a shovel and then kind of like a claw tool, like a cultivator. So I kind of use both. And I want to find a poker tool if you guys know what that is. But
yeah,
I'll probably find one eventually at a garage sale or something. But I do good with those.
I did find that, so I switched it up. Was it last year I switched it up? Instead of like the 3-prong that has like almost like the 90-degree angle, I switched to what they call, it's a clam rake.
Okay.
So it's curved and the angles on it are a little bit better. That way, I just found that it does less damage. They're a little bit thinner and they have more prongs. And the thing, oh man, they work great in the dump.
Hmm.
But it's like actually small, handheld. Yeah, pretty good to use.
Look into that.
Send a photo of that, Amanda.
Yes, I can put it in the chat. But you can get like long ones and short ones, and yeah.
Cool.
Pretty cool. I'll have to look into that for sure. It's pretty cool though, because I found another dump that's kind of like in the area, and I dug a bottle there from the Wired company. So I did some research on the Wired company, and I guess that they're like one of the oldest, if not the oldest, operating business in Michigan. They've been operating since 1838 without ever shutting down. And I guess for like a apple orchard, and I guess they supplied apples for the Union Army, and then they had relatives that made cannons for the Union Army, so they had some Civil War history too. So I actually heard from some of the family members, and they were really interested in one of the bottles that I found from that company because they're kind of scarce and hard to find. So I'm actually donating and put on permanent display in their museum, like with my name and everything.
Cool.
So I thought that was what's going to be like my first find ever featured in a museum.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's very cool.
For sure. Yeah, it's always kind of been a dream. So.
Definitely. So do you use any kind of special, like cut-proof gloves or anything like that?
No, not really, which is stupid, but I like to be able to grip stuff with my fingers, and I've paid for it over the years. I've cut myself only a couple of times where I've really cut myself bad, where I started to get nauseous, but...
Mm-hmm.
You don't wear gloves at all?
No, which is dumb.
Wow.
Yikes.
I've tried before.
I have to.
Yeah.
But the funniest story, so I was digging with gloves on, really thick leather gloves, one time a few years ago, because I normally don't, and that's the worst I ever cut myself, was through those gloves. And whenever I don't wear gloves, I don't get cut, and I'm like, I don't know, maybe it's inside I shouldn't wear gloves or something. I cut myself so bad, I was bleeding so bad, I had to like rip my shirt off and wrap it around my finger, and it was just like turning all red. It was a white shirt. It was so bad, and I started to get nauseous. I told my buddy, you might have to drive me home if I pass out. I just sat in the car. And luckily, I made it home okay, but it was a really, really deep cut.
Oh, that's terrible. Yeah, I cut myself Saturday. The piece of glass went cut through the bottom of my glove, but I usually wear the cut-proof gloves, but I had them in my river bag, and so I was just using the little regular gloves with the rubber ends, and the glass sliced right through my glove and my finger, but it's healing, but it wasn't fun. It was blood everywhere.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, I could not. I could not wear gloves. It's just I have to. You're a brave soul there.
I know.
I don't like wearing them, but I have to.
Yeah. I don't know. That's one problem with me is I'm kind of fearless. I don't really fear a whole lot of stuff. So I kind of get myself into some bad situations when it comes to digging because I'm just not really too scared to do things, which helps me find cool stuff. But it's like at times, I kind of regret it because I've done some pretty dumb stuff that could have killed me. So I should probably be a little more cautious. I kind of realized that when I had that hillside collapse on top of me, and that was kind of a wake-up call that I need to stop doing stupid stuff.
Right, you're alive now, so now you just gotta be a little more cautious. Definitely.
No, for sure.
So I'm gonna ask. So we asked this question, and technically, it seems like you might already have the superhero powers, but if you could have superhero powers and be a superhero of some sort and have those powers to go out and detect and find treasure, what superhero would you be?
I don't know if I really fully understand the question. Like,
If you could, like Superman could fly and get to all the different spots, and what he has X-ray vision, so he can see in the ground.
I got it now.
Yeah.
Probably to be able to dive to the bottom of the ocean to see what's down there.
Ooh, that's the first one we've had said that. Like more like Aquaman then.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. Kind of what I would love. I've always wanted to start scuba diving or something like that, but that's one thing I'm a little worried of is drowning. So I don't know. I might never end up doing it.
Well, you never know.
That's definitely
yeah.
Yeah. That's a good superhero there like that.
Mm-hmm.
And you're still young. You'll get. I'm sure there will be a time where you'll be like, all right, I've been digging this way too long, and you'll get into figuring out either the scuba diving or going down with, what is it, the Blue 3.0? Is that what it's called, Gypsy?
Yeah, the Blue 3 Nemo.
Yeah,
I just got one, so I'm going to be testing mine out very soon. In fact, I was talking to the director right before I got on the podcast tonight for a TV show that I'm going to be filming with, and we were talking about possibly using the Nemo in a spring that I'm going to be jumping in maybe in this episode to see if the treasure's in there. So we'll see. I don't know how big this... I've seen the spring, but it's not a very big opening, so I don't know. We'll see.
I was actually thinking about doing that in the Flint River because it's so polluted. Like, it's not really safe to go in there. Like, I go in there with waders, but I would never, like, put my head under the water, even though I did see a guy snorkeling in there one time, which was super disgusting. But anyways, I was thinking about getting those Nemo things. I was thinking about getting one of those on a kayak and getting an extendable, like, fishing net almost to scoop up bottles off the bottom of the river. Because I found some nice bottles. Yeah.
I bet there is, yeah. If you could get a dry suit, though, for that river, I bet you would be pretty safe, as long as you don't inhale any water or anything like that. You should be fine. Kind of cover up your skin.
You can dig down into the mud. Literally oil starts coming out. It's like that disgusting. It's like the worst river I've ever seen in my whole life. Like, I don't... It's like really, really, really hazardous. So I'm a little skeptical about that.
You would definitely need to wear gloves.
Oh yeah. I get nervous walking on the way time because there's heroin needles and stuff all over. It's like I would hate to step on one of those. It's like it just kind of freaks me out there with waders on. So
it's scary. Yeah, I used to detect in Galveston, and when I was out detecting a lot, there was a lot of needles. It was scary, creepy, and I dug razor blades before, so yeah, it's scary.
Same. A lot of that where I live.
Well, it's been great having you on tonight. We've enjoyed it. It's about time to close because there's another show on tonight, but it was great getting to know you, James, and hear about some of your adventures, and hopefully you do get to venture into the water soon. I think that would be fun.
Oh, yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time, too. I really appreciate it, both of you.
Thank you, James.
Absolutely.
Well, you all have a wonderful night, and we will hopefully see you next Monday.
Good night, all.
Good night.